Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. This one might be a little shorter than they usually are. Only got two topics today. My man G's not going to be with us. He's got some things going on, but I have got a great guest joining us. It's former University of North Florida Osprey, former Atlantic Sun Defensive Player of the Year, all-time UNF shot blocking leader, and former professional basketball player, Alwa. So we're going to talk, and he's going to give us some thoughts that you can't get anywhere else. So just hang with me. But before we get to all that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, so last couple of weeks, we've definitely had some technical difficulties with the phone lines, people trying to call in saying they weren't able to get through. So I did some testing and worked on that, so hopefully we'll be all good tonight. But I'm going to go ahead and bring in Alwa. If you're in the chat, make sure you hop in the chat, let us know where you're coming in from, and yeah, stick around. We got a pretty good show. All right, let's get right to it. Al, what's good, my brother?
What's good, man?
Maintaining, man. Listen, so grateful for you taking the time to join us today, man. Did I get that right in the intro? 1 or 2 time defensive player of the year?
It was one time. I guess I got
Okay.
robbed the second time.
Right. Yeah. So I again, I had the honor of covering you when you played at our alma mater, UNF, University of North Florida, man, and it was definitely a pleasure being there and getting to watch you play and do your thing. And then as I was telling you before we got online here, just taking the time and watching some of your highlights from overseas. This is you in Estonia. Like I said, just watching you took your game to a next level as a professional, clearly bigger and stronger. And obviously, I guess that comes from, just a different amount of time you have to put into your craft and into your body as a professional player, more explosive off the dribble, more reliable 3-point shot, man. So, yeah, absolutely. It was great catching up with you again. And I'm so glad you're here. So let's get right to it, man. So first thing we want to talk about is the NBA All-Star game, man. So I've been complaining about the state of the NBA for years, and people just say, oh, you're an old head hater. You just can't accept that the game has changed. All right, cool. Whatever you say. If you want to say that, okay, I can deal with that. But the fact is this, it's not my opinion, but the current state of the NBA All-Star game, the past 2 years have been the worst ever in terms of viewer ratings. And people they're not caring anymore. Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, he sees how bad it is in terms of he almost was basically begging for the players to be the All-Stars this past season to be more competitive. He brought in Reggie Miller because the game was in Indianapolis. So he had Reggie Miller and Oscar Robertson and Larry Bird, all, Indiana legends. He had all these guys kind of really host the thing and try to push these young guys to be more competitive and give us a more compelling show. But that's actually not what happened. We saw, 211 to 187, highest scoring All-Star game in history. And it literally was so bad, Al, that I think they had to cover the scoreboard because no NBA game had ever gotten to 200 points before. So crazy, right? First thing I'm going to ask you, man, is why do you think the All-Star game has fallen off so much? I mean, when I was coming up, and I'm considerably older than you, but it used to be incredible, man. Tell me why you think it's fallen off so much.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of obvious that it's like money involved and like players going and getting their own individual bag, which I mean, I understand, but the thing they like you may not notice is media when they talk about players being injured and getting hurt and how that affects deals. Like you see deals being affected because they talk about, oh, they shouldn't give this player that much money because you can't rely on them being on the court. They're always hurt, stuff like that. And so you see like NBA owners starting to put things in contracts, so that they don't have to pay players when they're hurt. And so an all-star game, you look at it as an opportunity to, yeah, kind of have some fun. But if you get hurt in an all-star game and you kind of mess up the rest of the season, like an NBA owner might be upset with how you went so hard in the all-star game, but you weren't able to take the team to the finals or something like that. And then you just kind of factor in, all right, like today's NBA has a lot more highlights. I mean, it's just regular season games, just absolutely ridiculous highlights. And you used to see
Mhm.
those in all-star games, probably in the 2000s and the 2010s, where, you just saw some special stuff in the all-star games and you were just like, man, wow, like these dudes are ridiculously skilled, ridiculously talented. They can just do things that like you they're one of one basically. And since you see those in regular season games, and I mean it's just so many highlights that it's like, man, what's another one? Like, they're out there kind of trying to be creative. All right, let me try, this step back, 360 spin, shot like this. And because there's just so much highlights, and that's kind of the space the NBA is in, that's what they try to give in the All-Star game. And I mean, it's not much different than a regular season game.
So, all right. So, two things, right? So, the first thing is you mentioned guys are afraid of being hurt. I want to defer to you as a player, but I can't agree with you on that. And the reason I can't agree with you, I'm 45 years old, so I've been watching the All-Star game that I can remember probably since like 91, right? Maybe a little earlier than that, but distinctly remembers like back to that point. We've never seen a player get hurt in an All-Star game, and them dudes used to play hard. Like I was watching a clip of something today, and you saw Scottie Pippen and Charles Barkley. Man, these dudes were fighting for position in an All-Star game, like it was an NBA Finals. And I mean, it was legitimate, like really fighting for position, going at it. And so that whole thing of guys are concerned about getting injured in an All-Star game, I can't really buy that because I've never seen it happen, even in a much more physical era. So I can't really go with that. Second, the highlight thing. Okay, that's cool. Guys are trying to be creative and do stuff that you don't see in regular games. I got you on that. Except here's my other problem. Just because you're trying to do that, if I'm on the opposite team, I don't have to let you, right? I still got a job to do. That's go out there and try to defend and try to stop you. I don't have to allow you to do that, even though you're trying to put on a show. Because my part of the show is to try and stop you. And guess what? If you get it off, that makes the show even better. It makes the show worse if I just let you do whatever you want to do. Thoughts on that?
I mean, just like I said, especially it's the highlight culture, like if you get embarrassed on a highlight, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean,
So what? Come go get them back on the other
Anthony
end.
Edwards, the way he dunked on John Collins, like,
Right.
like people, I mean, they're gonna troll him probably for a good month on social media
Mm-hmm.
about how he got dunked on.
Mm-hmm.
What's his gosh, I can't think of his name right now, but Kyrie crossed up Brandon something. I can't think of it.
Yeah.
But like,
Brandon Jennings.
yeah, not maybe
Brandon
not
Knight. Brandon Knight. Yep.
Brandon
Yep.
Knight. Yeah,
Yep.
Brandon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I still
I
have it in
remember
my
that.
mind to this day.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm seeing it. I'm picturing it right now.
yeah. Like, you don't want to be getting embarrassed like that. And so,
Yo, but that's part of the game, though. Sometimes you're gonna get caught out there. Like it happens. So go out there and do your thing. Go hard. Like I don't know. I guess it's a
I'm not
different
saying it's
mentality
right.
today.
I'm just saying that's what's happening. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it is troubling.
Mm-hmm.
And then like there's not really a huge incentive for them to go hard in the All-Star game, other than like just kind of viewership and like putting the NBA viewership on their back.
Hmm.
Like they're getting their own individual bag. They got a whole bunch of sponsors, that are
Hmm.
interested in them. I'm not saying that they will get hurt,
Hmm.
but I mean, like you see it with the NFL All-Star game as well. Like they're playing flag football basically.
Yeah. Well,
They're not really
yeah,
going after it.
they got rid of the pro. Yeah, they literally changed it to flag football, which is freaking terrible. But
Absolutely. And so it's
yeah.
just like they know that what they do, I mean, sports in general, like
Hmm.
you think of athletes as being healthy people,
Hmm.
but what they're doing to their bodies to play sports
Hmm.
is not healthy. Like you're putting your body in bad position. That's why, you see them all with ice bags and stuff like that, in
Hmm.
some part of the game, stuff like that. Like is not it's not actually good for the body what they're doing to play the sport, but that's what they do. And so with all of the body experts that they have
Hmm.
working them out all year, talking about, all right, like we want to build up these muscles and stuff like that, and we want to load management, like all that kind of comes together, and they have a real idea of, I could get injured literally any moment, and if there is not enough incentive for me to like play hard,
Hmm.
I'm not going to play hard because me getting injured, I could possibly lose sponsorship. Like think about Derrick Rose. Like
Hmm.
if he wouldn't have gotten injured, he would have been a face of the league.
Yeah,
Like
definitely. But I mean, that's just one of those things that you gotta, when you play, it's possible that it could happen. To your analogy of football and the Pro Bowl, I totally get it. But obviously, football is a way more, it's a
absolutely.
totally more physical game. So to some extent, I get that. But again, similar thing when you are, when you sign up to play football, you know that could happen. Like you can't play at half speed. But that's me. Okay, so all right, so here's the deal now. Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, was actually talking about uh, the possibility, because they're trying to go through every way possible to make the All-Star game more engaging to fans and to try and get these guys to play harder. And one of the things they brought up, he didn't say it's going to happen, but it's the possibility of a USA versus international format game to try and make guys more willing to compete and to try to drum up interest, because again, like the last 2 years have been the lowest viewing ratings in All-Star game history. So I guess my first question to you is, do you think USA versus international format would make players more willing to compete, and do you think that it would make fans more interested? And then we'll kind of get down into who we think the lineups would be and how that would come out.
It's actually funny because I definitely heard the point being made, on some media that I watched.
Hey,
Uh,
hey, hold on, Al. Hold on. Let me
yeah.
interrupt you for a second. You getting dark, bro. You got a light there?
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
see.
Give me a quick
Losing.
second.
Okay, thanks. Awesome. There we go.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You good?
But yeah, it's the point of, it's on the players. Like it 100% is on the players, and I think you kind of see with the newer generation that they haven't put as much interest into it. And if you see one superstar young player start going hard in the all-star
Hmm.
game, I think it can ignite something.
Hmm.
And I think doing a different format
Hmm.
could be interesting. And I think it could, if you get them to buy in on, all right, like there's some street cred that we need to get here. There's needs some respect that we need to get here. You know, I think that might be a better pool of, like, USA has to stay on top than
Hmm.
what the current format is.
Hmm.
But I mean, you really just got to get the players to buy in.
Yeah, and that was kind of my question. I think in a USA versus international format, maybe national pride comes in and pushes these guys a little bit. Like, damn, we can't go out here and get waxed. This is supposed to be our game, and the world is coming over here and dominating. So, let's talk a little bit about who we think would come out on top of something like that. So, I put together who I thought would be a starting five for international in USA, and so let's go ahead and run that down. For international at the point guard, obviously we got SGA. He's Canadian. He's probably second in the running for MVP this year, and as you see, he's an absolute problem. Um, we got Luca, which is so funny. When Luca started and they were making these Larry Bird comparisons, I really didn't like it. But the more I watch him, I'm like, man, he's tough. No one can really stop him from getting to his spot, even though he's not athletic. Wemby, Wemby is doing things we've never seen from a guy of that stature and this early in his career. Obviously, we know about Giannis, the Greek freak. Um, what else can we say about Giannis, right? He doesn't have the deepest bag at all, but the guy can go. Um, Joker, he can do it all. Obviously, I think that as good as he is, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he plays in a terrible center era, a terrible big man era. So if you transported him back to, I always like 1993, he, he might be getting 15 a game and 8 or 9 rebounds, but he wouldn't be doing what he's doing, obviously because no coach back then is going to allow him to basically run point. And then, of course, the competition at center, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal, Alonzo Mourning, Mount Mutombo, all these guys, like he's not doing what he's doing. So credit to Jokic for doing what he's doing in this era. He can only play against who he can play against. He was born when he was born. He didn't ask for that. But when we talk about Jokic on that all time, let's hold up on that. But anyway, the point is, I think that is an elite starting five. You have scoring, you have shooting, you have defense, you have shot blocking, you have rebounding, you have passing, and it seems like you got a lot of guys who are really smart basketball players as well. So now going to the United States starting five, I think obviously Steph Curry. You can't have and obviously this is all providing everybody's healthy. You can't have a team going up against the world without Steph. Jason Tatum, who I think his lack of aggression holds him back sometimes. He's so smooth and he's so good, but he does. If he had Jaylen Brown's dog, I think he'd probably be unstoppable. When he's healthy, Kawhi Leonard is probably the best player in the game. I mean, he's clearly the best two-way player in the game when he's healthy, and he's just super strong. He can defend. He can score from all levels. He's a problem. Kevin Durant. What more is there to say about the Slim Reaper, right? Tremendous offensive skill set. Not the greatest defender, but super hard to guard. And of course, LeBron James, the ageless, and I've also heard him called bagless wonder. LeBron, he does his thing. We know he's going to do what he does. So that I think would probably be the starting five for United States team. Before I got on, you actually were telling me Embiid also for the United States. I wasn't aware of that. I kind of looked at Embiid is still an international player. I think he's a dual citizen, but you were telling me that Embiid is supposed to be on the U.S. Olympic team coming up here.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and yeah, he's supposed to play with Team USA, so he could be a starting five candidate in there.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure who you replace, but yeah,
Mm.
definitely can make it a little bit more competitive.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, if Embiid's on that team, he's gonna eat Jokic's lunch, as we have seen multiple times.
Absolutely.
He's the only guy that Jokic can't deal with. I think that's styles make fights, right? That's always such an interesting matchup. But when they play, he gets it handed to him. He being Jokic. All right, so let's go now. Who actually wins this game, Wajid?
I mean, definitely if it's competitive,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say because like the reason why you see USA has been better like in the Olympics, like why they've been able to catch golds is because they have such special players that you have to guard them,
Mm-hmm.
and they've gotten so good, that they've started to play the game, kind of smart, but they're like ridiculous. So you have to guard each individual player, maybe double team, and like, they just make it a matchup nightmare. And then what you're seeing with like the best international players that are in the NBA, I mean, their skills have started to get ridiculous. I mean,
Hmm.
you look at SGA. I mean,
Hmm.
he's so nice. Like I
Yeah.
like his game a lot.
Yeah.
And then I mean, Wimby for what, he's 19 years old. Like
Hmm.
it was ridiculous. He's got full bag of tricks,
Hmm.
and I mean,
At 7'4".
yeah, I mean, he
Yeah.
jumps from basically the free throw line and dunks it, and like you
Hmm.
can't really guard it. So it's like I see Team USA being super dangerous on offense, and I see kind of the older heads being like, all right, like we're gonna think the game a little bit more, get some really good shots, but I might have to give it to international just because
Hmm.
like you see them play with a little bit more pride,
Hmm.
and you also got like really intelligent play and
Hmm.
just ridiculously skilled. Like I think is kind of is matching up to a point where I would say maybe 6 out of 10 times I see international winning.
Wow. Okay. So one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on here, Alwajid, is because obviously, like I said in the intro, you and I, we went to school together at University of North Florida. You grew up in the American basketball system, high school, AAU, all that, college basketball, 4 years. Cool. So you know how we train and how we raise our players on this side. But then you played professionally overseas, so you got to have a look at what's going on over there, how their players are developed, how their players are raised, how their players are trained, but you got to see it from the inside. So I want to ask you, tell us about some of the big differences in American versus international basketball culture, and then in American versus international basketball training, and maybe some of that lends to the differences that we're actually seeing on the floor.
Yeah, so um, I would definitely say that from what I experienced, overseas, there was much more of a heavy, just kind of like they definitely emphasized heavily playing smart basketball.
Okay.
Like if you crossed up somebody and then you accidentally lost the ball out of bounds, you're out really quickly. And
Hmm.
so like I will say, when Americans go and play overseas, from the situations I've seen, the coaches put up with Americans, but they
Hmm.
don't love how they play. They emphasize smart basketball. They want basically Spurs style basketball where you
Right.
pass the ball 15 times, there's 2
Hmm.
seconds left on the shot
Hmm.
clock, but somebody's absolutely butt naked wide open, and that's the shot that you get. Like that's the
Hmm.
way that they want to play offense. And I wouldn't say it's slow and deliberate, but it is definitely more deliberate, and they definitely emphasize getting a really good shot, and they definitely penalize bad shots a lot more over there than they do in the US.
Hmm.
And the thing you're starting to see is they don't work as much on skill development. That's why you see USA players still being a hot commodity everywhere around the world. I mean, every country you go to, you'll probably see at least one American player, getting a contract and making more money than the domestic players, because they see that we come in and we've worked on skills. We may have some fundamentals, but our skills are usually at a higher level than they are overseas. But something that's kind of starting to create a little bit more is you're starting to see highly, highly skilled players. I mean, just like we were
Mhm,
talking about Wimby at
mhm, mhm.
19, like this dude is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah, I didn't believe in him when all the hype and before, but the more I'm seeing him, I'm like, damn, this kid can do some stuff. I think what gets me with Wimby, and this is probably different from most people, is defensively. Like he gets out there and he's all the way out on the perimeter. Everything. Of course, NBA, everybody darn near wants to switch to pick and roll, but the way he can recover with his length and still protect the rim, that's special. That's special.
yeah, I mean, like the thing is, it's funny because like we bigs, back in the day,
Hmm.
their job was low post
Hmm.
and 15-footer. Like that's
Hmm.
where they ate. They could make 1-2 dribbles. They weren't pounding the ball at all. But now, like the way bigs move and like the handles that they have is just it's ridiculous. And so you see probably not as good of centers as you used to,
Hmm.
just because the game has definitely become a lot more guard dominated.
Hmm.
And so if you do see a tall player, that's really good, it's because, they play like a guard, like
Hmm.
essentially Jokic plays like a guard. He
Hmm.
just happens to be 7 foot and he can use his body extremely well in the post.
Hmm.
So it makes him so much more dangerous because the bigs now are mostly just lob threats,
Hmm.
just straight bigs that don't have, the crazy skills. They're lob threats and defenders. That's it.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's just crazy because you're really starting to see them have like special skills that they're really starting to work on overseas. And I mean, USA they're gonna have some issues, and probably the next few upcoming Olympics. I think we'll
Hmm.
still get it this year, but I think it's going to be a lot tighter.
I agree. So you played in Estonia, Israel, and Greece. Did you find kind of your thoughts pretty much the same throughout Europe in terms of the way they play and the way they coach the game?
Uh, yeah, man. It's crazy because in college, we definitely prioritized having your body ready to go for the game. You wanted to be, feeling your body at the best at the game. Practice. We worked and practiced, but we definitely saved our bodies for the game. And then,
Hmm.
overseas, you you killed your body every day in practice,
Hmm.
and like you hoped your body was good for the game. And so, like it was just like, man, like you got home from practice and like all you wanted to do is just lay in your bed and just like do nothing else because you was just tired. But
Well,
I
I think the
mean,
mentality is kind of, make practice as hard as it can be so the games are easy. Like that's what you hear a lot from the old school coaches. And
yep, yep. That was exactly the mentality, and so that was definitely very consistent.
hmm.
And then the type of team that I played on, they started to utilize bigs that were more speed and not as tall, and that was kind of more the position I played.
Hmm.
So they that was kind of like a little bit of a difference of something you started to see a little bit more. And there were a few big time name players that were bigs that were under 6'7",
Okay.
that were they made a huge name in Europe and they won
Hmm.
a bunch of championships and stuff like that. And so you start to see them try to play a little bit more fast pace because they see the advantage of not just having somebody that moves at 1 mile per hour, because that's
Hmm.
usually what bigs look like. But
Hmm.
with Wimby is ridiculous.
Yeah, he's different. Real quick, you mentioned that traditional bigs. So Zach Edey from Purdue, kind of gonna digress a little bit. He's more traditional big. What type of success, or do you not see him having success in the NBA on the next level? Because he's got to go next year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I will say I've seen a little bit of his game, not enough
Mhm,
to like really, really like know how dangerous or not dangerous he could be.
mhm.
But just kind of makes me think of a dude, Luca Garza.
Yep,
You
I saw
know,
that you played against him in Iowa.
yeah, yeah. I played against him,
And
and
he
I
can't get off
mean,
the bench in Minnesota. It's tough
that's
because
what
he was good.
yeah. I mean, he's got a game. Like he's
Mhm.
not a scrub,
Right.
but you just see that quickness that
Mhm.
players have now,
Mhm.
and that's the way the NBA game is played. And so if he's not, from what I've seen,
Mhm.
he's not moving,
Yeah. Yeah.
at that same pace. So I could see him having some huge issues. But best case scenario for him, he becomes kind of like a Jokic, and like they're able to slow the game around him.
Mhm.
It definitely had to be a coach that is all in on him. Like they're like, this is the guy, this is how we're gonna play. We're gonna play through him. It can be dangerous because you're not really seeing bigs that can guard that type of play
Mhm.
anymore. And so he could be dangerous, but if they're not all in on him, he'll be another Luka Garza.